Welcome to another episode of Stop the Lights. Just like the 33 bus in Dublin, you haven't seen one for a little while, and then two come along just at once, like we were only here chatting Formula One a couple of days ago. Another Grand Prix has passed. I am Ciarán Halpin, joined by Miss Olivia Fahy. Olivia, hello, how are you?
Hello, I know. Look at us go. Like two podcasts in the 1 week. That's
I
like
know.
unheard of for us.
And we're doing so well. Thank you to Formula One for having about 400 races a year, which allows us to continually talk about Formula One. It was a absolutely crazy Italian Grand Prix. We both said that it was going to be a McLaren 1-2. It was not a McLaren 1-2. Red Bull's Max Verstappen took home the victory. Did you see that happening at all?
I think I speak for many Red Bull fans when I say, God, no. That was not on my radar whatsoever. I thought that if there was going to be any surprises, it was going to be the Ferraris because it's their home Grand Prix, and even when they're not doing so good, they always manage to kind of pull it out of the bag a bit for Monza. They did their best this time around. A much better result for them than, let's say, Zandvoort. But it still could not touch the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who has now got the record for the fastest lap around the track and the fastest race ever, which is incredible. And actually, I think if it was going to go to anybody for those two records, it kind of had to be Max because in this era, he has been Super Max.
He was Supermax. He was on it from the absolute get-go on Saturday. And honestly, sometimes it's like Formula One is scripted because Piastri couldn't get pole. He didn't have a good enough lap. And then Lando Norris stuck it on pole, provisional pole position. And then the next car across the line, maybe I think Crofty might have forgotten about him because it was about 30, 40 seconds later. And it kind of surprised everybody, but in true Max Verstappen style, threw an absolutely amazing lap in there. And then the last two cars across the line were Mercedes. And even Martin Brundle was like, oh, Russell, he could do it. And there was absolutely no chance Russell or Antonelli were taking pole position away from him. Max Verstappen, once again, pulls that qualifying lap out of thin air. He's amazing at those one-off laps.
He is. And the thing is, like, he wasn't even anywhere, even in the free practices. Like, he was like still like in the top five, but he
Hmm.
definitely wasn't challenging for pole. Like it was the McLarens and the Ferraris that were really dominating the session, and Carlos Sainz was actually also doing very well. So no one was really kind of thinking of him before qualifying actually started, and just whatever way they tuned up that car was absolutely amazing. And I think we need to start like talk about the start as well
Mm.
because Max. Shall we say he was a little bit aggressive off the start? Yes, but for me, he still kept the driving line, even though Lando did end up on the grass. Like when you look at it, he was on the driving line, but then still went off at the chicane. So yes, he did need to give that place back. I thought that was very fair. I know Lando was querying why Max wasn't penalized for pushing him onto the grass, but at the end of the day, Max was on the driving line and Lando was trying to do an overtake on
Lando
the inside.
chose to go on the grass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, if
he
he
could have
didn't want to go,
braked.
he could have braked and he didn't have to go on the grass. In fairness, Martin Brundle said it in the commentary. He was like, three lanes went into two, essentially. Like, he didn't have to drive on the grass. He chose to drive on the grass. And like, that cannot ever help you. Like, surely if you just brake a little bit, don't go on the grass, you're still going to end up in the same place.
Exactly. And with so many people going off and like dragging gravel onto the track, you're already kind of risking damaging the floor at other corners. Don't be doing it on the straight, literally just as you've like taken off to start the Grand Prix. Like that is not how you do things. So I actually wondered was he going to have issues for the rest of the race because of that? But you know, Max was very clever, let him go, and then I think the furthest Norris ever got away from him was a second and a half, and Max just stayed with him, got into DRS within a couple of laps, overtook him, and then he was gone. Like Lando was just like, "Oh, Max, where have you gone? Hello," for the rest of the race. He just couldn't get near him, and I don't think we've seen the Red Bull that dominant in a very long time. So for me, I thought it was great, but it was still like absolutely shocking. It was not on my bingo card for this weekend.
Do you remember there used to be a rule? Maybe I'm making this up, but you had to give the place back within like three corners. If you didn't give it back within three corners, then you were risking a penalty. So Max Verstappen gave it back nearly a whole lap later in the best place possible for Max Verstappen. He gave it back and then he had DRS straight away to come straight back at Lando Norris. Am I making up that rule about you had to give it back within three corners?
I think that was a thing. I'm not sure if it was three. It could have been like within the lap or something. But, with Monza, there's only 11 corners
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
fair.
And like with how far ahead he'd gotten as well. So he couldn't just stop and wait for
Yeah.
Lando to catch him up to overtake him again. Like I think it was a case of, if you look at it, there may not have been as many corners as you think from where everything kind of went down. But because Max was so far ahead, he would have had to slow down, wait for Lando to catch him up, but then also make sure that, the Piastri and Leclerc battle behind wasn't also going to impact him as well. So being a bit smart about it, yeah, you can't blame him for that, really. But he did end up kind of like backing Piastri into Leclerc's clutches, which I thought
Mhm.
was very funny. Like the guy, even when he's like not necessarily going to win a race or things like that, he does know how to kind of set the cat amongst the pigeons for everybody else. Like remember in Monaco, he was just like trying to like back everybody up into each other to be like, okay, come on, let's see what we can cook here. I have to pit, so we might as well do something. But yeah, he knows what he's doing, I have to say. So it was a great victory for him. I was well pleased.
Yeah, look, in fairness, look, it's not going to affect the Drivers' Championship. He's probably going to finish third anyway. But look, the fact that he finished, though, nearly 20 seconds, he was 19.2 seconds ahead of second place Lando Norris. We will get into second and third place in a little minute with the McLaren controversial team orders. Where have we heard those words before? But in fairness to Max Verstappen, he did a very good job. Poor Yuki Tsunoda, again, nothing really to talk about Yuki Tsunoda, and it came out last weekend that he's not guaranteed a racing seat, never mind a Red Bull seat. We could very well be seeing the end of Yuki Tsunoda. And they were having a conversation on commentary about, if you're Isaac Hadjar, do you agree to step into that Red Bull next year? Or do you say, do you know what, can I please have one more year as a Racing Bulls driver? What would you do?
Well, the kicker is everyone was saying that this weekend was his first Q1 uh
Exit, yeah.
elimination. So like they were saying it's like, oh, he did so well, he got his podium at last, and then literally like went up in smoke on the first qualifying session, then started the Grand Prix from the pit lane, but still finished 10th, so it was still actually a pretty darn impressive drive from him. So if he was trying to be like, maybe don't offer me the gig, it kind of failed because he did a good job on the
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
But yes, everybody was joking that he did it on purpose because he was like, no, no, don't be putting the spotlight on me now. Like, you can keep everybody else there. Um, Honestly, like, you'd have to wonder whether or not the car is actually going to be any good next year. But also, what way is the car going to be set up? Does Isaac Hadjar have a similar enough driving style to Max Verstappen that he's going to be able to get to grips with the car better than Liam, Yuki, Checo? The list goes on.
It really does. Wow. Like a
So
graveyard of Max Verstappen teammates that's left behind in rubble.
yeah, but like I think in this day and age, you don't really see the traditional long-term partnerships that you used to
Yeah.
see back, like Eddie Irvine and Rubens Barrichello. Like they were Michael Schumacher's number twos for so many years. You kind of like they were never going to win their own world championship by being the number two, but they had a better chance of doing well and, being part of the Ferrari family, having that kind of prestige by doing that. So you kind of wonder, like, is it worth taking the risk of being the number two to Max? But if you have like ideals of being a world champion, then it's probably not the best move either. Because he's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
going to be the number one at that team. As long
Oh,
as he's
always.
there, no one else is going to get the preferential treatment. And even when a team says that they're, going to play it fair, uh, they may actually look like they have favorites after all.
But then you look, right? So Lewis Hamilton, number one at Mercedes for so long, he left, and we automatically assumed George Russell was going to be the number one driver forever. Yet, there was still a little bit of questions about whether George Russell's contract was going to get renewed. I know it eventually got renewed, but it wasn't like, no, George Russell is our guy. So you're not guaranteed. Even if you go in there as the second driver, Max Verstappen retires in 2 years, you're not guaranteed to be that number one driver at all.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts, and there's also so much talent because we'll get into it in a little bit as well with like the Formula 2 drivers and things like that. Like there is like we had this year the like most amount of rookies that we've had in one single like influx in a very, very long time. And that's not even half of the talent that is potentially there for the picking. So like with so many moving parts, it does like you're looking at names that have come and gone, and I'm like, I don't even remember them being in the sport, and they may have only been driving like 3 or 4 years ago, that kind of way.
Yeah.
So it just changes so quickly nowadays, just because there's a bigger pool of talent to choose from. So you just have to be on top of your game, or be the son of one of the owners.
Oh, look at you, Lance Stroll shade. I absolutely love it. Before we talk about the Ferraris, we need to talk about them and McLaren. Can we just
Hmm.
touch on some notable exits and incidents from the Grand Prix itself? Before it even started, poor Nico Hulkenberg was told to he was radioed to retire his car, a hydraulic problem on the formation lap. I wanted to give him a hug.
I know, and even when he came on, he was just like, "Oh, are you serious?"
Really?
And they were even like, "Oh, you kind of expect him to sound a bit more upset on the radio, but like I think he was just in shock because we were all just like, "Oh, that's very sad." And even seeing like there's a lot of like the TikTokers who do like their own like version of the race in
Yeah.
humorous form. It's just literally like straight away, it's like you see everybody kind of warming up, and Nico's just like, "Okay, bye guys." It's like that's pretty much what happened. So. Yeah, like I felt bad for him, but Bortoleto was sure able to keep the momentum going for the team, which was great. But it would have been nice to sort of see what Nico could have done from 12th.
I thoroughly enjoyed Fernando Alonso racing in the pit lane. That was absolutely brilliant. To only then have to retire because of front right suspension failure. I think it was probably Alonso's fault. He maybe hit the curb a little bit too hard. That looked like it from the replay.
Honestly, I don't think I've seen a suspension failure like that. Now, the comparison I'm going to make was much more dramatic, but do you remember when Kimi Räikkönen on the final lap of the race when it was like I think he like they weren't allowed to pit him, or if they pitted him, he wouldn't have come out in on the podium or something like that. So he's like, I'm going to risk it and see can I nurse it on the last lap. And literally as he went in for like the first quarter, the suspension like kerploded and the tire flew off and he ended up crashing out and not getting any points instead of just missing out on a
So
podium kind
the
of thing.
the Nürburgring.
Yes, that's what it was. I
Yes,
couldn't
yes,
remember which
yes,
ring it
yes.
was. But I remember that happening. So when he was just like, "Oh, we've got like a suspension failure," and you could kind of see it when he went over the kind of corner with the bumps. You're like,
Yeah.
you could kind of just see it give way, and you're like, again, it's been so long since you've seen that happen. You have to wonder, was it the fault of the driver by going over the rumble strips, or was it a case of there was something faulty with how the suspension was built in? Because we just don't see it anymore. So yeah, it's like how has it happened? You'd wonder.
Do you want to know something really interesting about that incident? So it was in 2005, right? But the man who went on to win the race that day was Fernando Alonso.
Love it.
Isn't that good? Isn't that good? Very quickly, we will talk about Carlos Sainz and Oliver Behrman. Carlos Sainz is absolutely the angriest man on the grid at the minute. I actually thought this was his fault. I cannot believe they went anywhere with a penalty for Oliver Behrman. The two of them collided mid-race, spinning both drivers, knocking them both out of contention. What way did you see this latest Carlos Sainz crash?
His little incident.
Yes.
I honestly I can see it from both sides that like it depends on what way the rules lie as to who was at fault because
Yeah.
Ollie Berman was up alongside, but he was only half a car length up alongside. He
Where's he
wasn't
meant to
totally ahead.
go? Where's he meant to go? Where's Berman meant to go?
And where was Sign? But like for that angle, where was Sign supposed to
Yeah.
go as well?
Is
Like
there
it's a
is
chicane, so you
yeah.
have like it's a turn and a turn. So Sainz tried to give him room, but there was also no other room on the other side if he was going to make the other corner. So was Sainz supposed to go just off on the gravel because Ollie decided to put his car up on the inside like that? I could see it from both sides. They were
Mhm.
both kind of like out of position really for taking the corner, but I think for the way that the contact happened, I think it was because of where Ollie Berman was. So in my opinion, I think that's where the penalty lay. But I also think they were probably afraid to give Sainz another penalty, considering like Williams are going gung ho to be like,
Yeah.
we want answers here, guys. Like, what the hell? Why was he the one penalised and not Lawson last weekend?
Yeah, they put in a proper like a proper I can't remember the word that James Vowles used, but it's like
Appeal kind of thing.
kind of appeal. He used a much
Yeah.
stronger word in the little meeting that they had back at the factory. But yeah, Carlos Sainz not a happy man. Shall we talk about Ferrari? Lewis Hamilton sixth, Charles Leclerc in fourth. Not a great day for Ferrari, but it could have been a whole lot worse.
Honestly, considering Hamilton started from 10th after his
Hmm.
five-place grid penalty, Leclerc started and finished in fourth, and he had, chances at third, but I think once the pit stop happened, that was kind of the end of that chance for him. Like, they drove a solid race. At the end of the day, they just couldn't catch up. They couldn't do any better than that. I thought Hamilton had some great overtakes. He was like on it from the minute that the lights went off. You know, it was a good performance considering they're off the back of a double DNF. So I think they did the Monza fans proud because we know how absolutely diehard the fans are.
Hmm.
And I know you were questioning how would they react to Hamilton, and I think we saw all the
How
videos.
silly was I? Oh
Oh
my
Jesus, you
God.
were
That's so wrong.
it like even when they were questioning with like Kimi Antonelli being an Italian driver, but he's not driving for Ferrari, there was wonders about like where will the Italian fans' loyalties lie? Will they be cheering for Kimi Antonelli and the Mercedes, or will they be cheering for Ferrari? And at the end of the day, everyone kind of conceded that at the end of the day, Italians are Ferrari fans.
Yeah.
As opposed to they'll support Kimi Antonelli if he's doing all right, but like if it's between him or Ferrari, they're going to be Team Ferrari all the way. And I think the lads did a good enough job at the weekend, considering they were never going to be able to challenge the McLarens really, and Max Verstappen just kind of came out from nowhere and was like, "Hello, guys, I'm back."
He really was back, wasn't he? But in fairness to Ferrari, I think they can't be unhappy with how that weekend went. Obviously, they would have liked a podium, but it was really out of their reach. Okay, let's talk about the main talking point from the weekend. Especially, I think it's the main talking point. Lando
hmm
Norris, Oscar Piastri, second and third. There was a little bit of tire strategy going on and team strategy. They decided to pit Oscar Piastri first, who was behind Lando Norris for a strategic reason. Then Lando Norris had a 6 second pit stop. The man forgot to put the tire on. He was just sitting there on his knees, and someone had to be like, "Will you screw the tire on?" I was like, "Is this happening? Is
Well,
this
actually,
really happening?"
he did do it, but your man was looking at it. He goes, "I don't think it's on tight enough." So he went and did it
But
again.
there's
He did
lights.
do it first.
There's
Yeah.
lights on the wheel gun. It didn't change green. They stayed that purpley blue color. I was like, I can you put the tire on, please? I could not believe it. And I thought, sitting there, I was like, well, Piastri's ahead now. That's it. They're not going to do anything. Of course, I forgot this was McLaren UN team in Formula One. Honest to God, there's a UN Security Council seat waiting for them in Brussels. What did you make of these team orders? I thought it was ridiculous. I understand it from a team strategy point of view, but they absolutely disgusted me with this team order.
So yes, and I think like McLaren, as much as Ferrari are kind of the most famous for their team orders kind of thing,
Hmm.
I do think that McLaren do have a lot of form in this. And even actually, I watched some of the replays with Channel 4, and David Coulthard was just like, could they like backtrack on all of those to make it fair for like a lot of the overtakes that I let Mika Hakkinen through for and all
I
this
love
type of
that from
stuff?
him.
I thought that it was hilarious. So here's the kicker. Piastri said on the radio when they asked him to move over, he said, "We had included a slow pit stop as you're gone racing." So if that is the case, then I think it was wrong of McLaren to ask him to give the place back before they could go racing again. But I think because Lando had been the quicker car, Piastri actually like couldn't even really get close enough to him to even challenge him for second place over the course of the race. I do kind of see why they're like, if we had a chance to catch Max, then Lando was the better driver in order to do that. They weren't going to be losing any points by doing the switcheroo. but they were 19 seconds behind Max Verstappen. It wouldn't have made any difference by letting Lando through to try and catch him because he wasn't going to catch him. And if Oscar, what he was saying was true, and they had have actually agreed that a slow pit stop counted as racing as opposed to a team kind of thing, um, yeah, then I'm kind of like, I personally would lean towards the side of they should have just left it as is and let them race. And if Lando caught him and overtook him, then fair enough. But yeah, I was a bit shocked that Oscar revealed that much detail. But
Mhm.
afterwards, he was just like, "Look, I've no problem with doing it. It's just one of those things." And I thought the way he handled it was so different to Hungary when they asked Lando to move over because Lando threw a strop
Yeah, he's very
over that.
emotional. Is Lando Norris, especially after, straight after races and in the cockpit as well. But I have a question for you, right? So, does Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen, Nicky Lauda, Jackie Stewart, Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna, do they allow that to happen? They're on the road at that minute. Things get sorted out in the team room all the time. Should Oscar Piastri have refused and just stayed ahead of Lando Norris?
I think Oscar was playing a smart game because he saw what happened with Lando when Lando was asked to move over for him and how Lando reacted to that. And I'd say the team were not pleased with how Lando handled that. So
Hmm.
I think Oscar is playing the long game in that if he plays ball now, then because he is still leading the championship, that might play in his favor down the line. Once McLaren actually secure that constructors championship, it should be a case of y'all are just fighting now.
Yeah.
That should be what happens. So you'd kind of hope that Oscar's kind of like, "Oh, look, I can give him the 2 points now, and then down the line, they're not going to make me do that again, hopefully. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But I think he's playing the long game and was playing it smarter to show them it's like, look, he might be your golden boy, but I'm the one that's the actual team player. And I think that's the point he was trying to make. What do you think?
I think you're probably spot on. I would not have been able. I don't think if I was in that car, and I mean, there's many reasons why I'm not a Formula One driver, but my absolute anger would be one of them. I would be like, "Are you kidding me? A slow pit stop. If Lando put it in the wall, do I have to put my car in the wall as well to make it fair?" Like it was just it was the team messages themselves just when you come across on the radio, and I know they're short, they're like abridged versions of what you'd say in a normal conversation because they're going at 300 kilometers an hour. But I felt sorry for Oscar Piastri, and honestly, there was a little bit of me that I don't like team orders anyway, but obviously they need to be legal because they were happening in backhanded ways anyway with like coded messages. But it does kind of call into account the validity of the sport sometimes. And it upset me when I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, we're going down this road now, are we? Is this the road we're going to go down forever now with McLaren?"
Yeah, and yet, like, I think it's one of those things where people sort of say that, team orders was only a problem with certain teams. It's like team orders have come into play with most teams
Yeah.
all the time. And it was just how they did it was the key. Like, the reason why team orders was banned, if correct me if I'm wrong, but it was shortly after the Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher incident where, like,
Last
on the final
corner.
corner,
Yeah.
he had to let him by.
Yeah.
I I think having them back in makes more sense because again, they were doing it anyways. It was just coded and trying to work around it kind of thing. I do get why teams do it at times. Sometimes if your slower driver is ahead and the other one's speeding up behind and it's a track where it's difficult to overtake, if you do want to try and get more points as a team, tell the slower driver to just move over and let the other one chase the other one down. But then I also agree with if they don't get the other driver, then we swap back. I do get that kind of caveat.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't have that, then that's where the favoritism stuff gets into play.
We are very quickly going to get to a point where it's not going to be mathematically impossible for Lando Norris to win the world championship, but it's going to become very, very difficult. He's already 31 points behind Piastri. And even if the two of them keep exchanging one and two, first and second place, Lando Norris needs Piastri to finish lower than second, and Norris needs to keep winning. There's only 8 races left. This is going to get very, very tight, but not. I think Norris is going to run out of time.
Yeah, but again, one of the reasons why Piastri is so far ahead now is because Norris had a engine failure.
Yeah, yeah.
So theoretically, all Piastri has to do is not finish a race and Norris is right on his tail again. So anything can happen in these last 8 races. There's a long way to go. And of course, with Baku being next, that's a street race. There's a lot of tight corners. I can't wait to see the carnage out of that race sometimes because it's like there are yeah, like I said, it's just there's some of those corners I don't know how they get around them, not just at the speed that they do, but just in general. Like if that's an actual, I don't think I could take that corner in my car, like let alone a Formula One car. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. It's going to be an interesting rest of the season. I still think Piastri will do it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Piastri has it in the bag, to be honest with you. And I think at a certain point, McLaren will start protecting him, even if it's subconsciously, they'll start protecting him. I think that I do think that's going to happen. How many of the rookies are going to end up in a Baku wall?
Oh, do you know what? The first face that popped into my head was Kimi Antonelli, and I feel really
Oh
bad
no.
for it.
He finished ninth. He got 2 points, which is more than he has been getting, in fairness to Kimi Antonelli. But he's not having a good time with it all. I think he's going to struggle to hold on to that Mercedes seat. I really do.
Well, Toto has confirmed that Russell and he are back for next season. So,
After that, though, I'm not too sure. Honestly, it's
like we'll have to see, but I think yeah, I think whatever's gone on in the last couple of weeks, I'd say, has just gotten into his head. So I think one with the more experience with it, then he should be able to come back stronger. And I think with the break, coming back after the break has definitely helped him in that sense, although he did take out the Ferrari last weekend. Um, yeah, I think hopefully this is a sign of things to come, that he's getting back in the game a little bit. But I think also because all of the other teams have kind of gotten their shit together,
yes.
you're seeing a bit more of that difference between him and Russell. So it's like they were kind of a bit more, not quite level pegging, but you know what I mean. They were definitely closer. Monza is also a really hard one to judge because when you think about it, it was like half a second between first and 20th for the
So
first round
close.
of qualifying. So like it's a really quick race. There's very tiny margins, so just one little slip up and you could be like halfway down the rankings. We'll
Very
see with Baku.
quickly, very quickly, you were keeping an eye on Formula 2 over the weekend. Of course, Alex
hmm
Dunn, he had a unfortunate sprint race and an even more unfortunate feature race over the weekend.
Oh gosh, I my heart went out to him. So the feature race or the sprint race wasn't really his favorite thing in the world. And then the feature race, he'd been doing well. He was climbing, he was in fourth place, overtaking to get third, and then suddenly Arvind Lindblad tried to overtake 2 cars at once and just crashed right into the back of Alex Dunn and sent him into the tire wall. Really unfortunate. He was a passenger, wrong place, wrong time, whatever way you want to look at it. And Lindblad didn't come in to change the nose of his car. And then when the restart happened after the safety car, then not only couldn't brake to take the first corner, slammed into another car and took another car out as well. So it was just an absolute disaster of a race for from the Red Bull perspective in terms of Formula 2, and then a really good race for Formula One's Red Bull. So it was a bit of a juxtaposition there for the teams overall. But yeah, like Lindblad is one of those drivers that they've been saying could potentially be in the seat with Max Verstappen next year, or at least could be in the Racing Bulls. I went through Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri in my head before I got Racing Bulls out there. But he's a name that's been floated about quite a bit. So we could be seeing him in Formula One next year. I don't think he's ready, personally. I think there, especially with all of the mistakes that were made over the weekend, I think there's still a lot of growth that he could
Yeah.
do. He's only a rookie, like Dunn in Formula 2 this season. I think he could do another year to cook. But who knows? Red Bull may want to take a chance, but they've already tried to take a chance with the Lawson issue, and well, we all know how that paid off. But Dunn, Yeah, he was showing great form. Unfortunately, just wasn't able to capitalize on it by no fault of his own.
Yeah, he's still, I think, fifth or sixth in the Drivers' Championship in F2, so all to play for still. We keep an eye on Mr. Alex Dunn. Next Formula One Grand Prix, we have the Qatar Airways Azerbaijan Grand Prix 2025, just under 2 weeks away. Olivia, 21st of September, midday race for us here. I like a bit of an early race. Again, I called it last week. I said a McLaren 1-2. Do you know what? I'm going to go McLaren, Red Bull, McLaren, just to throw something out there. Why not? What are you going for?
Do you know what? If the Red Bull can hold it together, I'm actually going to say Max might have the edge in Baku. He tends to do better in the street circuits than Oscar and Lando. I'm sure fact checkers will probably correct me on that, but just historically, I have it in my head that he does well on most tracks, so it's actually kind of hard to pick it out. But if he has the speed that he did at the weekend, I wouldn't be surprised to see him right up there. Also, I wouldn't rule out George Russell as well. He also has good form on street races, so he could put a cat amongst the pigeons for this one.
Yes, it's one of the more exciting street races, although they have signed up Monaco until 2035. So that's not going anywhere. If you have a fancy yacht, you can still go and park it in that very fancy bay in Monaco. Olivia Fahy, we will be chatting more Formula One very, very soon on Stop the Lights, probably after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Thank you once again for talking Stop the Lights and Formula One with me. And where can people check out all of our social media musings?
Well, we are at Stop the Lights Pod on Instagram, where we'll always share the links, and you can listen to us on basically most places where you get your podcasts. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, we're on YouTube, and we are on Podbean.
Amazing. Olivia, thank you very much, and we will talk to you very soon.
Bye.